Hello, Maurits here. In this video we should have a look at some probabilities, and for probabilities we have a couple of facts that we should always consider, and that is that the probabilities are always between 0 and 1. If you get something outside of those values, you're kind of wrong. And the second thing is that the sum of all probabilities in some setup in any way is 1. There will always be some result, right? So even if the result is nothing happened, that is also have a certain probability. So the sum of all the probabilities in, for example, a survey or something should always be 1. Say we have conducted, what could we say, a quiz, and you can get 1, 2, or 3 marks, and we can have a frequency table. Say a few students did this, and 5 students got 1 mark, 3 students got 2, and 2 students got 3. So we can see the total number of students, usually written that's n, right, is 10. So we have 10 students. And suppose we are to calculate the average of the number of marks. So we should add up the total number of points. So since 5 students had 1 mark, so 1 mark times 5, that will be how many marks these 5 students had. So 2 marks, that was 3 students that had that. And 3 marks, oh, that was 2 students. That will give us the number 5, 6, and 6. And if we add those up, we get 17, right? So to find the average number of marks, we should take 17 divided by 10, or 1.7. And this could, of course, be seen as a frequency table and some values, but we can also say something like this. Say the frequency is how many object we bought with a certain price. So we bought 5 things with cost of 1 crown, 3 things with the cost of 2, and 2 things with the cost of 3. So, I mean, they could be frequency table of a lot of things. We can also do like this, that we instead calculate the relative frequency. So we have the same thing here, right? 1, 2, and 3. And we have relative frequency here. So that would be 5 out of 10. 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10. And if we would choose one of these people at random, that will also give the probability to find that person. So we can also see that this will be a probability of 5 out of 10 or 50%, 3 out of 10 or 30%, and 2 out of 10 or 20%. So that now we can actually calculate it in this way instead. We take a 1 times 5 out of 10 plus 2 times 3 out of 10 plus 2 times 2 out of 10. And that will give us 5 out of 10 plus 6 out of 10 plus 6 out of 10, which is exactly what we had before, 17 out of 10. So if we take a student at random, the average number of marks will be 1.7. That doesn't mean that that student had 1.7, right? That it's, if you take a bunch of students, they will have an average of 1.7. So we can use, instead of calculating the frequency times x and then divide by n, we can take x times the relative frequency and it will give you the same thing. So we can say the average x could be calculated as the sum of all x's times their frequency and then divided by n, which will be the same thing as the sum of all x's times the probability for that x, will give the same result. We can do this for a bigger table. This can be done on the calculator, right? So say we have something like this, x and frequency, and say we take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and say 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 3, and 2. Any more complicated case like this, I think the calculator would be the best tool. So menu, for this calculator, we go to stat. I have empty lists here. So I enter the x values, 0, 1, and then I enter the frequencies. And then I want to do some calculations on these. So I press calc, and before I do any one variable statistics here, I go to setup, check that my X list says list 1 in this case, and my list 2 says list 2. If you have the value 1 here, it just assumes that you only have X list, and each of these X has a frequency of 1. Even if you have several X's with the same value, then we'll say that's with 2 and 2 here, 2 times 1 and 3 times 1. So basically, if X is 1, assumes you have a frequency list of 1, 1, 1, 1, or this column here will just be ones. But in this case, we need to change this to list 2. So the setup is done. Always do this before you do a calculation on statistics. So after we've done our setup, we go here, and this is one variable statistics. That means that you have one variable and just the frequency. The two variable statistics is if we have some X and Y value that are connected in some way. So I press one var, I get an average of 3.13. The sum of x's is 97. So that is how many all in all, so 0 times 2 plus 1 times 3 and so on. This one we don't need. Then we have two standard deviation values. The smaller of this is the standard deviation of the census, and the larger of them is the standard deviation of the sample. It will be slightly larger because we are more unsure if we don't have the values exactly. N is 31, that is, we add up the column 2, 3, 5, and 7, and so on, we get 31. So if we go further down in the table here, we will get the minimum value of x, the quartile 1, the median, the quartile 3, and the maximum value for the x values, right? And finally, the mode, the most common value. We can see that 9 here was the frequency for 4, so that is the highest frequency we have. And that is about it. We get actually a couple of values there more, but we don't need those. Hope this helps a bit. Thank you.